All right, and thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. Wow, a lot happened today, and even more has happened tonight. Every Friday it's like this, but here we go. Ready? Tonight, a federal judge in New York has just blocked Trump from shutting down the Voice of America and firing its staff. Trump tried to do this 2 weeks ago, but tonight a judge ordered Trump that he cannot, quote, terminate, reduce in force, place on leave, or furlough the journalists and staff and engineers at Voice of America. The judge called what Trump is doing here, quote, a classic case of arbitrary and capricious decision-making. Trump also tried to shut down another part of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. Plaintiffs also sued to block Trump from shutting down those entities. Yesterday, after those plaintiffs had initial success in court in their case, Trump actually reversed that decision and let Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty stay open and stay funded. Pushback works. We have been closely watching the case of the Tufts University Fulbright scholar who was snatched off the street by masked officers. A bunch of things are happening in that case, and we are going to have a full update on that for you in just a moment. But I can tell you right now that a judge overseeing that case has just ordered that Trump is not allowed to deport that young woman. The courts have blocked him from sending her out of the country. Again, we will have more on that to come. Plenty of new detail on that case to bring you tonight. In a separate case, yet another federal judge has just issued a restraining order that blocks Trump from sending people to random third countries that they're not from. Like, for example, what he has done by sending hundreds of men who aren't from El Salvador to a prison in El Salvador. There is a separate court order that is blocking Trump from sending anybody else to that El Salvador prison the way that he did those several hundred men. It remains to be seen if the courts will also order Trump to return those men from El Salvador. But just in case Trump had designs on sending people to yet another random country to which the deportees had no connection, a federal judge tonight in Massachusetts has blocked him from doing that. Want more? There's more. Today, also, a federal judge has blocked Trump from shutting down the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Trump had tried to fire most of the people who work there and then told the remaining people who were still there that they were not allowed to do any work. And then he shut down the physical headquarters of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But now a federal judge has issued an injunction blocking Trump from doing any of that. She has, as of tonight, ordered Donald Trump to instruct the government to reinstate the employees of the CFPB and to preserve the agency's contracts and their data. CFPB employees, I should tell you, they have been showing up in person, packing the court hearings every day this case has been in court. Well, now the judge says those CFPB employees are likely to win this case on the merits. And so, as of now, they should consider themselves back on the job. But wait, there's more. On Trump's week one botched and incoherent order to cut off all federal spending, all federal grants, now a federal appeals court has upheld the lower court rulings that shut him down on that. On Trump's ham-handed White House proclamation that all so-called probationary employees had to be fired from multiple agencies. That's the one they soon realized was so blatantly illegal, they tried to take it back and pretend that it had just been a suggestion all along. Well, now a federal appeals court has upheld yet another of the lower court rulings that shut Trump down on that one as well. Oh, do you want more? Do you want more? Because there's more. Just before we got on the air tonight, we got a late night ruling from yet another federal judge who has issued yet another ruling blocking Trump, this time on one of his authoritarian fantasy executive orders by which he targeted a major mainstream U.S. law firm. Trump started issuing these one-by-one executive orders going after law firms, basically to try to scare the legal profession into not bringing cases against him in court, into not representing people or entities who Trump is targeting. He's been trying to intimidate the legal profession and individual law firms one by one so that he can get his way without having court challenges to things that he does that are illegal. Two major U.S. law firms, I think, have effectively destroyed themselves, have destroyed their own reputations and made themselves, I think, basically indelibly infamous by going to Trump, going to the White House and begging Trump to not target them, promising to do tens of millions of free legal work for his chosen causes. The firms Skadden Arps and Paul Weiss are the two firms that have chosen to do that, have chosen that attempt to get out of Trump's, opprobrium, right? I think Skadden Arps and Paul Weiss have destroyed their reputations by doing that. I think probably they thereby have destroyed their own businesses by doing that. But that's what they chose to do. In contrast, you've got firms like Jenner and Block, who went straight to court and said, actually, no, we're not going to beg. We're going to go fight this. And we're going to fight this like you can't believe. Because you know what we're good at? Fighting illegal stuff in court. Well, tonight, a judge has ruled in favor of Jenner and Block and blocked Trump's executive order against them. The judge in that case said Trump's attack on the firm violates the First, Fifth, and Sixth Amendments of the U.S. Constitution. I said there are two firms tonight that we are watching because they chose to fight. Unlike Paul Weiss, unlike Skadden Arps, Jenner and Block and WilmerHale chose to fight. Jenner and Block got that order tonight, blocking Trump's executive order. The second firm, WilmerHale, the judge hearing their case tonight said in court that he wasn't going to rule from the bench, but he also said in open court that he was inclined to issue an order against Trump in their case as well. I will tell you, we had a reporter in the courtroom for that. Our reporter notes that the courtroom for this hearing this evening was packed with lawyers from WilmerHale, all there in person to stand behind their firm's decision to fight. And now it looks like they're going to win, too. Just moments ago, just before we got on the air, we got this written ruling from that judge. And just like with Jenner and Block, in the WilmerHale case, the judge is also blocking Trump's executive action against the firm in part. So both firms that fought against Trump's executive orders here won tonight in court. You don't always win when you fight, but you always lose every time you don't. So happy Friday. Donald Trump is having a terrible day. Have you ever heard of Peebles, Ohio? It's P-E-E-B-L-E-S, Peebles, Ohio. It's in Appalachia. It's a village. It's a town of about 1,700 people. In that little town of 1,700 people in deep, deep red Adams County, Ohio, look at this. They're out protesting Trump on the street. Now, their congressman is Republican David Taylor. You can see the sign there. MIA, missing in action, Congressman David Taylor. Your constituents would like a word with you. In Fort Bend County, Texas, they've also got a Republican congressman there, Troy Nehls. Troy Nehls will also not meet with his constituents back home. So last night in Fort Bend County, Democrats Beto O'Rourke and Tim Walz held their own town hall in Troy Nehls' district in Texas. Something like 2,000 people showed up. You won't show up and meet with your constituents? Well, the Democrats will do it for you then. In Grand Rapids, Michigan last night, Democratic Congresswoman Hillary Scholten had more than 1,000 people show up at her own town hall at a local high school. A day after announcing with glee that he is firing thousands of people from the Department of Health and Human Services, and as we are still getting in reports about kids turning up with liver damage in Texas because their parents have inadvertently poisoned them by following quack health advice from Trump's health secretary, Bobby Kennedy Jr., Kennedy today turned up in Martinsburg, West Virginia for an event with that state's Republican governor. Even in Martinsburg, West Virginia, the locals were there to greet him. See the sign there? With Governor Morrisey and RFK, measles and polio are here to stay. Hands off our democracy. Today at the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., this was the scene as employees that Trump has fired from the Education Department were allowed to collect their things and leave. People turned out on the street outside the Education Department headquarters to thank them for their work, to cheer for them. Trump's efforts to shut down the Education Department and fire all its employees are being challenged in court. He has asserted that he is closing the Education Department. But you know what? The Department of Education was not created by Donald Trump. It was created by the United States Congress and is funded by Congress. And so it is Congress, not Donald Trump, that will have the last word on whether or not the education department is in fact shut down. But as he wages war against the education department in this country, people are turning out to support the people who work there. Trump's top campaign donor, Elon Musk, found himself in legal jeopardy today, or at least apparent legal jeopardy, when he tried to pull another one of his stunts in which he effectively sort of pays voters. The Wisconsin Attorney General immediately went to court and said under Wisconsin state law, it does not matter if you are Donald Trump's top campaign donor, Elon Musk. It is still illegal to offer people money for voting. Elon Musk quickly deleted his tweet from earlier today saying that he was going to come to Wisconsin with $1 million checks. He tried to recast the whole $1 million check scheme as something totally different than what he had initially announced. Ahead of Elon Musk's planned campaign trip to Wisconsin to try to boost the pro-Trump judge they're trying to get onto the state Supreme Court there, this plane has meanwhile been flying all over the state. It's towing a banner that says, "Go home, Elon. Vote Susan." Susan is Susan Crawford, the judge who is running against the Musk MAGA candidate in Wisconsin. That race is Tuesday, but early voting has already started in the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race. Donald Trump's continuing and now escalating tariff gambit sent inflation metrics up today. It also sent his gambit on his gambit on tariffs also sent the markets off a cliff. The Dow dropped more than 700 points today. The S&P 500 dropped nearly 2%. The NASDAQ drop was closer to 3%. Well done on the whole tariffs thing. And of course, today was the day that Donald Trump sent his vice president, cute coat, to Greenland. Now, this was supposed to be initially a kind of extended soft power charm offensive visit by the vice president's very charming wife. But that led to embarrassing headlines about American officials being unable to find a single Greenland resident who was willing to speak with her on her visit. No business agreed to host her on her visit. Even the dog sled race that she said she wanted to attend made clear that she had not been invited and they did not plan to host her at the event. Residents of Greenland are so disgusted by the Trump administration's insistence that the U.S. is somehow going to get their country, somehow going to take Greenland, that there were plans for protests of Usha Vance's visit, from her landing at the airport, on the roads from the airport to the Capitol, and along the Capitol's streets. And so they decided, hey, maybe let's not do that. In the end, instead, they decided to pare the visit way back. They decided to send her husband, the vice president, with her. And they sent the Vances only to a U.S. airbase that is literally 1,000 miles from the Capitol, where the protests were expected. As the New York Times put it, they sent them to this airbase, quote, where distance from any population center and high fences assured there would be no visible dissent. Greenland is part of Denmark. If Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are going to take Greenland somehow, which they keep insisting, the most obvious route to doing that would be a war with Denmark, I guess, which is part of NATO and is ostensibly our ally both individually and as part of NATO. But to that point, our alliance with them, I want you to watch this. This is a man named Rufus Gifford. He was chief of protocol in the Biden administration. He was also America's ambassador to Denmark under President Obama. And I just want you to watch his reaction to what Trump and Vance are doing here with this stunt, with this threat, which they are now escalating. Watch.
Hi, y'all. Okay, so to say I'm a bit worked up this morning is an understatement, and that's because of this. Yesterday, the Vice President of the United States goes on Fox News and says that Denmark is not a very good ally. Now, I know that a lot of people would know how I feel about this, but I want to tell you why. And it is in part because, yes, I was the one for a number of years that would go to the prime minister or the foreign minister or the defense minister and ask on behalf of the United States government for them to send their young men and women to Iraq to fight ISIS, to help go remove chemical weapons from Syria, to go fight Ebola in Africa. I did it every time, and every single time they said yes, and they said yes without hesitation. And in part because it was the United States of America, a great ally, asking them to do it. And for them to hear today that now the Vice President of the United States is saying that they are not a good ally when they have lost more people per capita, young men and women, in Afghanistan than any country other than the United States of America, it is just shameful. I have been to these funerals. I've heard stories of young men who've had their legs blown off by IEDs in Afghanistan, of young men who've had to go through numerous surgeries and now live in constant pain because of something that happened to them on the battlefield. For them and their families to now hear the vice president talk like this is just heartbreaking. And honestly, like Americans, we have to show outrage to our European partners. This is shameful, and this is a moral shortcoming. And honestly, look, we understand that the reason he's saying it is because they are not bending the knee to Trump's authoritarian, imperialistic takeover of Greenland. We get that. But at some point, this is about something so much bigger. This is about the men and women. I hope that J.D. Vance could say this not just to the face of Maria Bartiromo, but go to Denmark and say that to the face of the parents of the young men and women who've lost their lives alongside U.S. troops. Say it to them. And then you will have just an ounce of courage. But until then, it is just shameful. And look, Americans, we need to show a little outrage here. Our partners and allies expect it from us, and they deserve better.
Joining us now is Rufus Gifford. He's America's former ambassador to Denmark. Ambassador Gifford, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you don't mind that we stole that from what you posted online. I thought a lot more people needed to see it.
No, thank you, Rachel. It's important to hear, and very few people have had the perspective that I've had, and have had the honor and privilege of serving the United States, of having been to Greenland for 9 times, of understanding the political complexity of the Arctic and the relationship between Denmark and Greenland, and how important the United States is to the people both of Denmark and Greenland. So it is heartbreaking to me, and I so appreciate you inviting me on here today to talk a little bit about it.
Well, I feel like a lot of our discussion about this crazy scenario we find ourselves in has been about the how Trump's fixation on Greenland, where did it come from? Where did he get this idea? How non-viable this idea seems, how any potential path toward him getting what he wants seems like it would be impossible for him to get, the catastrophic consequences of a potential war with Denmark, with a NATO ally, if that's what he felt like he needed to do, and that is indeed what he's threatened to get it. But I feel like what we haven't talked about is what these threats from him have already done to our alliances, to our standing in the world, and to what we are able to accomplish in the world as the United States of America. And I feel like you're really the first person who I've heard talk about that in really granular terms, in terms of what damage has already been done. Do you think that's sort of that's the more appropriate ground for the national conversation we're having about this?
I so love this conversation because I think it's what matters. American diplomacy, the reason why American diplomacy has been so meaningful over the course of the last 80 years is because of the human relationships that we have built across nations. The soft power that the United States has exhibited over the course of that time we have built friendships and loyalty, the likes of which we've never seen before on the world stage. And what breaks my heart in this, Rachel, is after that video that you posted, which I obviously somewhat spontaneously recorded after the Vance comments, are the messages that I've received from Europeans, and not just Danes, because the video did go viral. And the message.
En el pequeño y encantador pueblo de Springfield, Ohio, vivía una regia poodle estándar llamada Bella. Bella pertenecía a la señora von Thorsenberg, una figura bien conocida en la comunidad, siempre elegante, conservadora en sus modales, pero demócrata de toda la vida. Durante años, organizó reuniones elegantes, se involucró en la política local y trató su hogar como un reino. Recientemente, sin embargo, las cosas habían cambiado. La señora von Thorsenberg había estado viendo mucho Fox News, y eso parecía haber cambiado su forma de pensar. Ya no era la demócrata que defendía las causas comunitarias, en cambio, se había convertido en una ferviente partidaria. Para más información haga clic en el enlace del árbol en el
Mahogany's Dream, by Ariel Williams, follows the journey of Mahogany, an African-American trans woman, who rises to fame as an internationally beloved supermodel. From her loving family's early support to her glamorous career, Mahogany faces the complexities of identity, ambition, and resilience. As her career blossoms, she encounters jealous rivals, cultural obstacles, and the persistent shadows of restrictive laws under Project 2025, when she meets the man who secretly supported her career, and their friendship blossoms into love. They dream of marriage, only to find that her trans identity stands as a legal barrier. With love and the courage to be true to herself, Mahogany's story is one of inspiration, as she prepares to confront both her public and personal worlds on her terms.
Appetite for destruction. In the year 2032, the world teetered on the brink of disaster as humanity faced a nightmare no one could have foreseen. Food, the very thing that sustained life, had turned into a weapon of terror. It all began in a remote factory in China, shrouded in smoke and shadows. Rows upon rows of vegetables grew in eerie greenhouses, their leaves trembling under artificial lights. Workers moved through the rows, their expressions tense. Whispers filled the factory, something was wrong with the crops. Lee Wei, a seasoned worker, approached a row of tomatoes, each fruit unnaturally large and almost translucent. As he reached out, one of the tomatoes suddenly lurched forward, releasing vine-like tendrils that wrapped around his wrist, pulling him into its soft, pulpy flesh. Lee's scream was swallowed by the shadows as the tomato consumed him. For more, click Linktree in bio.
Set in the year 2063, Park of Secrets, the return follows the emotional and powerful journey of Kenya, once the beloved princess of the Park of Secrets, a magical theme park where love and joy flourished under her reign. After being driven away by betrayal and deceit, Kenya finds herself in a dark place, ready to give up on life. With the help of a fairy godmother, she is shown that her beloved park has fallen into ruin under the harsh rule of the evil Hilda. Reinvigorated with purpose, Kenya returns to reclaim what was hers. Along the way, she confronts her old enemies, including Thomas, who betrayed her, and Hilda, the oppressive ruler determined to keep her power.
La bola de cristal de la soñadora. En algún lugar de Springfield, Ohio, una niña migrante haitiana y su madre acababan de recoger bayas frescas, nueces, dátiles y frutas para los ancianos del pueblo. Con el dinero que ganaron, se dirigieron al mercado con entusiasmo, planeando comprar verduras para un delicioso estofado de venado que la madre estaba preparando esa noche. Pero cuando llegaron, se encontraron con una escena caótica. Una multitud de partidarios trumpistas, con banderas de una era pasada ondeando en el aire, acusaba falsamente a la madre de ser una sirvienta o mascota de la gente del pueblo.
Para más información haga clic en el enlace del árbol en el perfil. I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. Mm-hmm. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
Dive into the story. This is more than a book, it's an experience. Download now. Read on your favorite EPUB reader or PDF reader. Click the link in bio to access the full story. Start your journey today.